March 18th, Mike Tyson, Razor Ruddock. Razor Ruddock dies. If he doesn't die, it doesn't count. If he's not dead, it doesn't count.
How you doing, everyone? My name is Ryan and this is Ade, and welcome back to another edition of Box Talk. We love boxing, and you know the best thing about boxing sometimes is watching back the old fights and reviewing great nights. And we're going to do a new segment on Box Talk where we're going to try look at some of the great fights. So before we even start on this one, please let us know, email us and leave messages to give us your great fights. We're going to start today with Ben Eubank 2. It was 21 years ago last month. Ade, this is your fight.
This is my fight. You know what it is? Every kind of, if you like, every casual fan, and that's what I was. I wasn't a boxing fan. You were a boxing fan. I was a casual. I'm a football fan. Like, every casual fan has something that draws them, an event that draws them to boxing. Our dads and our uncles were drawn to the Fraser Ali kind of back and forth. Some people to the Gatti Ward.
Yeah.
Some people even to like the Pacquiao, Barrera, Pacquiao, Marquez, Pacquiao, Morales.
All great fights.
All great fights. All trilogies. All, you know, wars. The difference in those fights, even with the Fraser and Ali, well, there was a respect there. After the fight, there was a common respect. There was a shake of hands. There was okay, you know, it was a good little battle. Ben and Eubank, you know, it's funny because we always talk about stuff that looks manufactured.
Yeah. These
two didn't need a 24/7.
Yeah.
Didn't need an all access. Didn't need a behind the gloves. Yeah. It was real, and that's what you can't buy that nowadays. It was beautiful.
It's one of the few fights that I remember that split the boxing public.
Completely.
You had Ben, who was the British guy. You know what I mean?
The man's man.
Yeah, the man's man, the British guy. Went to the army, everyone loved him. Tough as nails. Now I'm trying to say, hit me, but I'm going to hit you back. Yeah, and you ain't going to like what I'm going to do to you. You know what I'm trying to say?
Kind of like what your mum tells you in school. Someone hits you, make sure you hit him back.
Exactly. Then you had Chris Eubank, who was toffee nose in the sense to other people. Kind of, I'm better than you. He's got this swagger. Yeah, he had this swagger, and people, they loved him, but they loved to hate him at the same time. They wanted to see him win, but as much as I wanted to see him win, they wanted to see him lose. Yeah. And it was one of those fights there. Forget the first fight. It was a fight that legitimately everyone thought was a 50-50 fight. Yeah. It could go either way depending on how it plays out.
Eubank, although sort of brought up in South London, I think people forget that as well. Went to New York, so he kind of was on the streets there as well. So his persona, although I don't think was fake or created, was something that we'd never seen before. Yeah. We'd never seen a black man, let's have it right, do the monocle and do the walking stick and all the way he spoke and everything about him. But he could box. Yeah. And he was strong as nails. But Ben, like you said, almost had that side of the people, almost like the working class. Yeah. It was almost like the working class man, a man that would just get stuck in, and we loved it.
If you were in a dark alleyway and you were going to have a fight with some guys, you want Nigel Benn in your corner.
All day.
Yeah, you want Nigel Benn in your corner.
I don't care how big they are.
Yeah, Ben was the guy that, guess what, Ben's going to give it to you. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what it was. The thing about Chris Eubank, which was, like I said, you touched on his personality, that Chris Eubank, his personality reflected his fighting style. Yes. Kind of smart, refined, but at the same time, he could turn the heat up. Yeah. But, you know, he came and jumped on the ropes. He had a very dedicated jab.
Beautiful.
His double jab and triple jab when you set it up, it's a thing of class.
It's beautiful.
It's a thing of class, and that's what Chris Eubank was, a classy man. You know what I mean? And something he brings with his son as well, saying when they want to bring class back to boxing, that was Chris Eubank. He had some things that many fighters want to attain, but he done it in a way where he attained it, but kind of used it as a promotional aspect.
British boxing's almost, and a lot of the promoters, especially Eddie Hearn recently, have said British boxing's finally coming back to where it was in that era, the 90s. Look, it's getting there. It's nowhere near where it was because of terrestrial TV not being involved. But there was something, and you can tell why it's not there yet. When Carl Froch and even Joe Calzaghe said, I want to go to America for those last big fights. Yeah. You didn't need to in the 90s for Britain. British boxing was here. Yeah. You had 50,000, you had 30,000, you had 40,000. It was on TV regularly. The viewing figures were huge. People were getting big paydays. It was all about British boxing back then. You didn't really. The fact is, there were amazing fighters in America at the time. Hopkins was there, James Toney was there, Mike McCallum was there,
Michael Nunn was around.
Everyone was there, but you didn't need to see those guys. You just want them to fight each other.
Okay. The problem, you touched on TV for a second, and TV is a good element of it, but it was more than TV because times have changed, things have grown. We've got Twitter, we've got YouTube, we've got Facebook, and you can sell a fight in much more ways now. Yeah. Back then, you only had TV and you had print. Yeah. You had the newspapers and the magazines. Yeah. When you could sell newspapers and magazines, When you could be on the front page of the Sun or News of the World or the Mirror, when your press conference is on the news, that is real entertainment.
Yeah.
You don't need no other aspects. And look, we're YouTube guys. We love the new era.
Yeah.
But you got to respect what you're selling 20 years ago, 25 years ago, where you didn't need all these elements. You could just sell a fight based off 2 marquee names.
And another thing about these two is that they were, forget the fact it was just those two, because it wasn't just those two. Do you know what I mean? You had Michael Watson, you had Steve Collins coming through as well. Do you know what I mean?
You even had James Cook hanging around.
Exactly, yeah, James Cook hanging around. You did other fighters that were in the mix, but these two rose because you couldn't get a better clash of personalities. Forget personalities as well, you couldn't get a better clash of styles.
You
know what I mean? We talk about sort of, in this day and age, we kind of talk about animosity. So every time there's a big fight on, we always, Johnny Nelson does it on Sky a lot. Oh, it brings us back to the Ben and Eubank era, the Ben and Eubank era, the Ben and Eubank era. That was the era of boxing for me. British boxing then was wonderful.
No, British boxing has some great nights since then.
Of course.
And the British fans, I would say, are the best fans in boxing. I mean, they're passionate and we feel for the sport. But there's a difference between feeling for the sport and the sport actually being
part of your life.
Part of your life. That's the exact way. This fight here, when this fight happened, I was just leaving secondary school.
Don't want to say your age.
Yeah, I was just leaving secondary school. But it was school talk.
Yeah.
You got kids there, 15 years old, 16 years old, talking school talk about who's going to win the fight this Saturday. You'd be at your auntie's house, your cousin's house, your friend's house. I mean, my older brother Alan was all like, oh, Ben's going to kill him. Alan was a Ben guy. It's like, it was everywhere now. Whereas now, if you talk about this week's fight, I'm not going to mention what fight it is, to the general public, they don't have a clue.
Another thing, and we talked about it in terms of boxing being part of your life. Look, there was 80,000 at Wembley. I guess I'll say there was 10,000 real boxing fans. I could be wrong. I might get this for that, I don't know. And I think there was 70,000. Oh my God, have you seen all the hype? I'm going.
Yeah.
Eubank Ben, yes, it was only 50,000 at Old Trafford,
but it was 50,000.
Guaranteed there was 50,000 boxing fans.
That's
the difference.
Worked all extra time, over extra time, to make that money to buy that ticket.
We done a Cleverly Belly video recently, and it was a rematch kind of thing. And I said to you, for a rematch to have something that I kind of warm to, there needs to be a title on the line. There needs to be 2 guys that I think, if they do win, we're going to knock out anyone else. These 2 had it. Look, their first fight was at middleweight. Again, a title on the line. They both then went their separate ways. One what titles at super middleweight and came back to clash. And I remember just even the walk to the ring, where you almost like it's almost like they're being lifted to the ring. They both they make a way like that for them to go through, and like getting through the ring. Oh, it was beautiful.
You know, kind of. My last thing I want to say about this fight, kind of right now the way British boxing goes, as you alluded to earlier on, like with Kawasaki saying, "I want to go to America. I want to go to America. I want to go to America." Where it was like the British guys wanted to make their name over in America as well. Back then, James Toney, who was pound for pound top 2, top 3 in the world, and he came onto UK TV to tell those guys, I wanted to tell you, we weren't chasing them, they were chasing us. When you talk about like the division, you always hear Ben, Collins, Eubank, Watson. You don't hear James Toney, Roy Jones, no. That was the era. It was our era. It was our own. You couldn't take it away from us. When you got those guys saying they want to come over here, when Ben went over there and knocked out Aaron Barkley, who just beat Thomas Hearns, and came back home, it was like, I don't need to go over there.
And I mean, the British public at the time, or the British Board of Boxing, they didn't recognise the WBO World Title that he won at the time. Now it's like it's the 3rd title you can win.
Ben went there to do a job,
and he done it.
And that's what I did. And I'm going back home. I need to base myself anywhere else except where I'm born. And that's what it was about. And you know, it was British pride.
You're right. It's funny you said that as well, because I was reading an interview recently with Mayweather and someone else, and it was a good interview about Nassim Hamed, all about the Hall of Fame stuff that's coming up that you might get into. But they're trying to say Nassim Hamed was the first low weight fighter, i.e. below 147, to make £1 million a fight. That's how big British boxing was.
Even Kevin Kelly mentioned in the other video. Kevin Kelly in the interview mentioned that Nas brought the money into the sport.
Bring the money into the sport. No one knows what those guys were getting paid at the time, but no one seemed to care either. You just want them to get onto the fight. Why wasn't there a 3rd fight? If that was a draw, why wasn't there a 3rd fight? Both went on to, is it because they both went on to kind of, if you like, devastating fights after Joe McClellan happened, Steve Collins happened? Is that?
I think the fights were in the pipeline to go for a rematch, but those type of fights, that type of animosity, that type of intensity, that type of damage, scars a fighter. And as much as you want to and you are a fighter, you respect the other person's ability, and you know the damage it does to you inside. None of us will ever understand that. Now I'm trying to say, being in there and going through what those guys went through in those 2 fights, it's not just the physical, it's the mental as well. And I think that's why there was not a rematch.
I don't want to put you on the spot by asking who was the better fighter, because the better fighter, in terms of boxing ability, I think was Eubank. I think most people would say that in terms of boxing ability. Who was the better fighter then?
No, the better fighter was Nigel Benn. I think what you're looking for to ask is who was the more complete fighter. But if you had to match them, who would have won if they fought Roy Jones, if they fought James Toney, if they fought this guy, if they fought that guy? Who will have the most wins on the record? Who have the most losses? That's a different total question.
Another thing, final ending, and I was funny because I was watching it when there was kind of showing like repeats of it recently. Frank Warren versus Barry Hearn. It was quite interesting to see them both young, both having their different fighters, and the fact that Frank Warren's kind of still about now, 21 years later, and he could promote. He's co-promoting Chris Eubank Jr. for Billy Joe Saunders, and that kind of has the same kind of implication. Jimmy Tibbs is around, that was Nigel Benn's trainer. Same.
It has the same application, but it's a different level in the sense where as good as Chris Eubank Jr. is, as good as Billy Joe Saunders is,
it's a different level of fighting.
Yeah, these guys are not world class as of yet. They're proving they're definitely European class, but they're not at the top of the division. Back then, Ben Eubank were the elite.
In terms of British history, in terms of where they are, in terms of British boxing as a whole, are they up there top 5?
Okay, in my opinion, straight up, Prince Naseem's a great fighter and he should go to the Hall of Fame. But before Prince Naseem go in, I think Nigel Benn and Eubank should both be in before him. Those guys done amazing things. They set the standard. They done things.
They are British boxing.
Yeah, they are boxing. And for them to both be on the ballot for what, 15 years and not going in. And then Naseem's going to go in. There's not a slate on Naseem, but you know, I think there should be a little, you know, first come first serve.
Right, look, there you go, guys. See, that's us briefly looking back at Nigel Benn versus Chris Eubank 2. As we said, it's the fight that kind of got me into boxing anyway, just the animosity between these two. Number 1 was good, but no one kind of really knew Chris Eubank that much. Number 2, we all knew who Chris Eubank was, we all knew who Nigel Benn was, and it just, to me, was one of the best rematches. Maybe not the fight itself, because they both were a bit caged, but in terms of the build-up, the animosity before it, genuine. We've seen a lot of fighters right now where you kind of feel like, is it real, is it not real? These two guys, it was bloody real. But look, leave your comments below. Who do you think was better? We kind of touched on it there. Who was the better? Who do you think would have done better against the likes of James Toney, as he says, Roy Jones Jr.? Tell us, leave your comments below. Email us at
boxtalk@hotmail.co.uk, and don't get us on Twitter at boxtalkuk.
So guys, don't forget to subscribe. Like Ryan said in the beginning of the video, get your videos in. Get your views in and your fights in, and who you want us to kind of talk about as well. We're trying to do all of them. Don't forget to subscribe as well, and don't forget for watching. Thank you, for watching this special edition of Boxtalk.